Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. I'll bet most of us remember Ray Stevens' biggest hit, a song called The Streak. If you aren't old enough to remember this, there was a fad in the 1970s called streaking, and that meant people took off their clothes and ran completely naked through a public place. In his humorous song, Stevens tells of a man and his wife who encounter a couple of streakers. Each time the man yells, "Don't look, Ethel!" But each time it's too late. At the end of the song, the man is shocked to see the next streaker when it turns out to be Ethel herself. Well, I don't know who first had the idea to streak this way, but I suspect that one of the first examples comes from the Bible. This week we are looking at fairly obscure stories in the Bible, stories you might never have heard of before. In fact, of all the stories this week, you might have noticed this one, the story of the man who runs away from the arrest of Jesus completely naked. Now that I think about it, even that wasn't the first example of streaking in the Bible. The first one I'm aware of happens when Jacob's son Joseph has been sold into slavery in Egypt. He becomes a servant in the home of Potiphar, an official in Egypt. Mrs. Potiphar had designs on Joseph and invites him to lie with her, but Joseph refused her advances and turned to flee. Mrs. Potiphar grabs at him, catches hold of his tunic, and Joseph flees naked, leaving the tunic in her hands. The end result is that he ends up in jail, and then interprets the Pharaoh's dream, and then becomes second in charge of all the land. God has a way of working things out. Again, that was the first story, and it is probably more well known than the story we will talk about today. The story is found only in the Gospel of Mark in chapter 14. When the story happens, most of the events in the Garden of Gethsemane surrounding the arrest of Jesus have already happened. The disciples have abandoned Jesus, fleeing in fear. There was, however, one follower of Jesus who hung around, at least for a while. Mark tells us that as they led Jesus away, a certain young man was following him, wearing nothing but a linen cloth. They caught hold of him, but he left the linen cloth and ran off naked. What can we glean from this small incident? Well, nakedness can often be a way to express exposure. Think about Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. After they eat the forbidden fruit, they clothe themselves. The first cover-up, you might say. They have sinned. They know it, and they try to hide it from God. They have been exposed. Perhaps this young man's flight reflects the stripping away of our security, pride, and control. We think we are all those things, but the truth is that we are far from that. We are weak in faith, vulnerable and vacillating. If we are honest, we know we betray Jesus and flee away too. It's a raw moment of exposure. Another thing to consider is that when danger arises, we flee away just like the disciples and just like this young man. In fact, for us, it doesn't even have to be danger. It can be just difficulty or even inconvenience. We abandon Jesus easily to feel safe and secure, however we are threatened. All this is made clear by the fact that the man isn't identified. Some scholars believe that this is Mark himself, that Mark wrote himself into the gospel story. Still, it is perhaps more important that the young man remain anonymous, because that means it could have been anyone. It could be anyone. It could be you. By remaining anonymous, we are invited to put ourselves there, to realize how our easy abandonment of Jesus leaves us exposed. We can't hide it from God or engage in a cover-up. Our vulnerability, our shame, our fear, our spiritual fragility, all of it is on display. We are exposed. What then are we to do? We do what Adam and Eve did, and we do what Joseph did. We do what this young man did. We do the only thing we can do. We throw ourselves onto the mercy, grace, and love of God. Our God is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. We are clothed in God's grace and welcomed into God's arms of forgiveness and love. In the song, the man told his wife not to look at the streakers, but maybe we should look long and hard at this young man in Mark. We'll see ourselves, and we'll see God's grace. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.